भी आ चुके हैं, कुछ लोग पहली बार आ रहे हैं. टू गिव यू सम कॉन्टेक्स्ट, the idea in this conversation is to sort of explore parenting, किस तरह से हो रही है, क्या हो रही है, क्या बदलाव आ रहे हैं, and how do we sort of look at parenting in the current context. जो पहली बार हमें ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं उनके लिए quickly some things about Saja. So we at Saja believe in potential and dignity of all parents, and we work on creating platforms for them so that they can impact the lives of children. हमारा काम पेरेंट्स के साथ ज्यादातर होता है. हमारी कोशिश रहती है हम किस तरह से पेरेंट्स को ज्यादा सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड कर सकें. हाउ डू वी बिल्ड अ सपोर्ट इकोसिस्टम फॉर पेरेंट्स, ताकि पेरेंट्स बच्चों पर एक डीप डीप इम्पैक्ट कर सकें. हमारा मानना है कि पेरेंट्स अगर बच्चों के साथ को सपोर्ट करेंगे, पेरेंट्स को अगर एक सपोर्ट इकोसिस्टम मिलेगा, तो इट कैन एक्चुअली इंश्योर डीप इम्पैक्ट ऑन द लाइव्स ऑफ चिल्ड्रन. इसी सिलसिले में द आइडिया इज नाउ टू एक्सप्लोर पेरेंटिंग, और हमारे साथ आज जो है दो बड़े खास लोग जुड़े हैं. हम लोगों ने अभी तक जो है काफी सारी मदर्स से बात करी. हमने सोचा इस बार थोड़ा सा अलग करते हैं, थोड़ी फादर्स से भी बातचीत करते हैं. तो वी हैव टू स्पेशल पीपल विद अस. मैं इनका इंट्रोडक्शन नहीं दूंगा, मैं चाहूंगा ये लोग इंट्रोडक्शन दें. हमारे साथ मनीष और नितिन जुड़े हुए हैं, क्योंकि मैं इनका इंट्रोडक्शन कम कर दूंगा. आई डोंट वांट दैट. तो मैं क्विकली चाहूंगा, मनीष अगर आप क्विकली अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस कर सकें. What do you do, where you are from, how old is your kid, Manish, and then we can move to Nitin.
Sure. Thanks, Ranj. Hello, everyone. I'm Manish Manohar. I'm father to a 4 months old boy now. So yeah, that's probably my first introduction these days. उसके अलावा मैं एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है turn.io, उनके साथ काम करता हूँ. आई एम ए सॉल्यूशंस इंजीनियर देयर. साथ ही साथ मैं साझा के साथ उनके टेक्नोलॉजी में उनको असिस्ट करता हूँ. काफ़ी देर से मैं टेक्नोलॉजी में मेरा ट्रांजिशन हुआ है पिछले कोविड के बाद, एसेंशली 2019-20 में. उससे पहले मैं नॉन फॉर प्रॉफिट स्पेस में साझा के साथ काम कर रहा था, और उससे पहले मैं एक एनटीपीसी करके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो बिजली बनाती है, उनके साथ में काम कर रहा था.
तो बिजली बनाने से लेकर टेक्नोलॉजी तक सब कर चुके हैं, एंड अभी जो है एक फादर बन गए 4 month old के. थैंक यू मनीष. ओवर टू यू नितिन.
Thank you, Saransh. Manish, pleasure to meet you, and big congratulations for being a father. So you're born just 4 months ago as a father. Congratulations for that.
Yeah.
Well, Saransh, thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Nitin Agarwal. I have 2 kids, and both of them are getting into the young adult zone. My elder one is a 16-year-old girl. Name is Dia, and my younger one is 12-year-old boy. His name is Adi. So I have Adi and Dia. Coincidentally, Adi was named by Dia because she wanted her name to be spelled reverse, and that's how Adi was coined. And pretty much this is both ghar ka naam, bahar ka naam. So life is simple. It's not a complicated thing. Having said that, it's been a fun journey. I think, being a father has been like reliving my old childhood, and also seeing my parents' aspirations of parents, coming back again. It wasn't as much we enjoying the childhood of our children. It was more watching our parents enjoying the childhood of our children, because they were reliving us, because we had a childhood where we didn't know that we were growing up, and it is supposed to be called growing up. Pretty much oblivious, and we thought थोड़े और बड़े हो जाएं तो सब ठीक हो जाएगा, which never really happened, right? As usual, it has been an uphill climb, and that's so for everyone, I guess. So I'm the eldest of 3 siblings, and my parents are, everybody would like to praise their parents, so would I. But just to give you a little reflection, my father had lost his parents at a very, very young age. And he lost his grandparents also at a very young age. And he was eldest of the 3 brothers. So pretty much helped groom his own younger brothers, and was in fact parenting his own brothers who were not too young compared to him before we came into the world. And then, of course, I am one of the 3 siblings, eldest of the 3 siblings. I have a younger sister and a brother, and both lovely human beings. I have bossed around with them, and I continue to boss around them. And they continue to bear my nonsense all this while. And I would say so is also my children who are continuing to bear my nonsense more as we go along.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Nitin. And let me sort of start this question off with both of you, because then आप उसमें गए हैं. And Manish, if you could talk about your childhood, right? So when you were growing up, where were you growing up? किस तरह का environment था? How did you see your parents? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Sure. So I'm from Jammu and Kashmir, which means that usually during when I was kid, the conditions in Jammu and Kashmir they were that it was not very like very stable as it is now. So I grew up in a city called Jammu, and then there are other cities that we went to. Father की posting होती रही. There's a place called Punj. उस टाइम बहुत डिस्टर्ब चल रहा था मिलिटेंसी के कारण. तो वहाँ पे भी कुछ समय चाइल्डहुड का बताया. बहुत बहुत फेड मेमोरीज हैं, बट आई थिंक लॉट ऑफ टाइम बहुत ही प्रोटेक्टेड एनवायरनमेंट में हमारा सबका बचपन गुजरा. मैं और मेरी दो सिस्टर्स, जिसमें फादर और मदर दोनों ही सोचते हैं कि हाँ आज सब कुछ स्टेबल होना चाहिए, कुछ बाहर दंगे ना हो, वो सारी चीजें. बट कभी वैसा फील होने नहीं दिया पेरेंट्स ने हमें कि अब बहुत ही कुछ बाहर चल रहा है. बिकॉज मैं अगर सोचूं तो बहुत ही फेड मेमोरी के साथ I still remember there are a few riots going around our place. But मुझे याद है कि मेरी मदर कैसे she hold on to all of us to make sure कि ये डर नहीं रहे हैं और वो सब. So it was a protective environment. उसके बाद जम्मू में पोस्टिंग हुआ. जम्मू में थोड़ा सा बेटर स्टेबल प्लेस में हम आए. फादर यूजली बाहर रहते थे ट्रांसफर्स के कारण, बट मेरी मदर्स जो थी मदर के साथ ही रहा. ज़्यादा समय मैं फादर के साथ नहीं बिता पाया ड्यूरिंग माई चाइल्डहुड. एटलीस्ट मुझे ज़्यादा समय याद नहीं है. हो सकता है बिताया हो जब मैं ज़्यादा छोटा हूँ, बट उतना ज़्यादा नहीं. लार्जली ट्रांसफर्स और उस टाइम जॉब उनके कमिटमेंट्स के कारण मदर के साथ काफ़ी समय बिताया. उसके बाद क्लास 6 में आई वेंट टू ए बोर्डिंग स्कूल. जबरदस्ती घर से लड़के कि मुझे जाना है, आई वांटेड टू एक्सपीरियंस हॉस्टल लाइफ. बट या एवर सिंस काफी बैलेंस्ड लाइफ चल रही है. और या
Interesting. Nitin, if you would want to talk about कैसा बीता आपका बचपन and how was your childhood? Nitin, you're mute.
Less adventurous compared to a Punj, and I can imagine the war zone. But I come from a town called Meerut, which is in Western UP. I think the only common thread I can draw is that Meerut is one of those rare towns which had BSF or Border Security Force posted inside the town. And I'm just picking from where you left, Manish. And, so riots we have also seen, not as severe and not because it was more internal strife than external, unlike Kashmir. Uh, but I think we were less impacted because we were in the peri-urban area of the town. While we originally come from the deep interior and sensitive area of the town, but my father had moved out of the town into peri-urban areas, and therefore we didn't face too much of risks or experience that. Except that once in a while, after every couple of years, we used to see curfews and long duration situations. Having said that, like I mentioned, my father had lost his parents and grandparents pretty early, so he was a very hardworking person. One starking memory that I have of my parents and my father is that, unlike small towns, unlike very traditional, Marwadi / Agarwal families, my father was a pretty progressive guy. I mean, whatever we speak about gender related, gender intentionality or inclusiveness, he kind of had it right up front. So very participative in all household activities. So kitchen was never my mother's domain. It was equally my father's domain. Washing clothes was all a joint family exercise. So, weekdays we would wash our own clothes. Weekends we'll all four together. Me and my sister and my parents would wash it together. My brother was pretty young, so he would toddle around and not do much work. More cradle kind of a guy. But I think we had good fun times, very limited resources, and my father was kind of doing a job and then trying to keep doing all random out of box stuff, trying to make the two ends meet and trying to save up for future. And he encouraged us also to work hard. So starting from ninth standard, I had started earning. I was taking tuitions. My mother also used to run a tuition center at home, so that was an easy pick for me because I got groomed pretty early on how to give tuitions, and therefore was able to cobble up some pocket money to pay the school fees, which allowed us to study in slightly better schools than we could have afforded, and scholarships and all of that was helpful. And between me and my sister, we were pretty clear that we need to safeguard our younger brother from all of this. So he kind of grew up in a little protective shield between me and my sister. So he was kind of handling double parents. One was the real parents and one was the elder sister and brother parenting him all the time. Not to his much of an advantage though. But fun times. We were, I remember spending a lot of time with cousins, both on the maternal side and paternal side. Really enjoyed those occasions. बुआ के घर जाना है, चाचा जी के घर जाना है, चाचा जी के यहाँ जाते थे तो दबा के फ्रूट्स खाने को मिलते थे. He used to shower us with a lot of food and fruits and stuff. And बुआ के घर जाओ तो lip smacking Marwadi food. All those are my happy memories. Festivals were always extended families. On the maternal side, summer vacations at Nani's place. My Nani used to be in Haridwar. So beautiful environment. So I think those are largely my childhood memories. There would have been some stresses, but I don't think I ever carried them forward in terms of my memories. I did have some bad habits, like I used to keep awake very late, and my study time used to begin after the dinner. So I would typically study from starting 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And that habit I, in fact, got even more enhanced as I grew up because I eventually ended up working in media industry, and then I do a startup. So life has been really, half nocturnal kind of thing, which started early during those times. My mother was never happy with that. Barring, I think that one issue, I didn't have any altercations with my parents. My father never scolded me or beat me up. My mom used to slap left, right, and center whenever at free will. She comes from Lucknow, which is Tehzeeb and Adab. So she used to give us slap. And my father came from Meerut, which is rough, rowdy, loud. And he was this nice, well-spoken, very soft person. So I've seen nice contrasts in my family. Maternal side was all, technocrats. Paternal side was all businessmen. So I had fun time growing up and saw a lot of, two sides of the contrasting divides.
Interesting, interesting. And Nitin, you sort of referred to घर पे typical gender roles जो देखते हैं बच्चे वो नहीं देखे. How do you think that affected you in sort of how you carried forward, how you are today?
Well, there are, it's good and bad both. What is happening today is that a lot of people have this tendency of telling their children that आप केवल पढ़ाई करो, घर के कामों में ध्यान मत दो. आपका काम पढ़ाई करना है, हमारा काम घर चलाना है. So effectively, children are staying in a guest house, and then they graduate, and they don't learn life skills. And when they graduate and they get into their own life, it's a very big deal for them to do cooking, cleaning. It so happened that all three of us got married to partners who were the cajoled and the types who were not good at household activities or taking household responsibilities. And therefore, we ended up becoming dominating in that sense, which is not a good gender balance. And that applies to all genders between us siblings, I would say. My brother is an excellent cook. I love his cooking more than I love my own cooking. So because there was never a gender divide, we all picked it up without knowing it. We were never trained how to cook. We were never trained how to take care of the house. It just organically happened because my father used to always participate. And it was not his job, my job, your job. It was common. And whatever approvals he used to give to me was also available to my sister. So she was never restricted. In fact, she was more outgoing and more adventurous than me at any point in time. I think that kind of made us as three siblings a little more dominating. I would say because we are more empowered, we can take care of ourselves, we're not dependent on anybody. And therefore, our expectation from the spouse is also that much more, or from our children today is also that much more. To say that, we should. So I don't like when my wife serves food to my children. I just completely hate it. पकाना नहीं आता तो कम से कम अपने आप किचन में जाके खाना तो लेना चाहिए, अपने बर्तन रख के आओ.
जी जी.
So this whole guest house mentality of today's generation is a problem. And I run a startup and I have a lot of young people in my team. And when we do potluck or whatever we do, I see a distinction. Today, there are a lot of boys who are very good cooks and a lot of girls who don't know anything of how to take care of the house, because somewhere household activities these days for children has become demeaning to be assigned to them and to be expected from them, which actually later in their life disempowers them. They are far more powerful and empowered. So I have like few men who cook very well. So when we do a potluck and they bring food, we're all praises, right? And their spouses are better off. So if both, all genders participate equally in the household while also doing studying, it'll always empower them more, and they'll be far more entrepreneurial, as I would fathom. Then really facing a difficulty कि ससुराल में आके खाना बनाना सीखना पड़ रहा है. जब बीवी बीमार है तो हम चाय ही और मैगी ही बना सकते हैं. Or when we are doing our engineering, we don't know what to do with us because we can't cook, so we are living on burgers and sandwiches. I think that would be my main takeaway.
Interesting. And I think in some form शायद वो एक तरह का पुश बैक भी है कि क्योंकि हमको बोला जाता है खाना बनाने के, इसलिए हम नहीं बनाएंगे, और लड़कों को नहीं बोला जाता है शायद इसलिए बनाएंगे. It's an interesting sort of position to be in. Manish, given 4 महीने का है अभी, and you seeing the world around, right? क्या anxieties है Manish for you when you look at your child and you see this world? What are certain anxieties that you feel?
Yeah, I think there are lots of हर दिन एक नया चैलेंज, एक नई एंजाइटी है जो हम आसपास के एनवायरनमेंट से सीख रहे हैं, देख रहे हैं. I think one of the major concerns that at least I have is कि वो ऐसे अब लार्जली आई थिंक मेडिकल कंसर्न सबसे ज्यादा है. अभी एंजाइटी होती है कि बच्चा ठीक रहे, बीमार ना हो, डॉक्टर के पहले पास ले जाएं तो कहीं उसका ब्लड ना निकालें. आई थिंक वो तो सबसे सबसे पहली वो है कि यार ठीक से सारी दैट्स अ रीजन व्हाई me and my wife, we decided to switch from Delhi to a place in Himachal Pradesh. एक छोटे से गांव में हम switch किया. Largely वो सबसे बड़ी anxiety थी कि वो सही से grow हो, at least health wise. I think अभी तो उतना ज्यादा नहीं है. I think forward हम जब आपस में बात करते हैं, me and my wife, हम सोचते हैं कि यार स्कूलिंग कैसे होगी, स्कूल में सब ठीक हो तो होगा कि नहीं, किस सोसाइटी में बच्चा रहेगा, गिवन आजकल इंफॉर्मेशन लोड इतना ज्यादा है कि बच्चा क्या सीखेगा क्या नहीं सीखेगा, आसपास के फ्रेंड्स कैसे होंगे. आई थिंक लॉट ऑफ टाइम वी टॉक अबाउट दीज थिंग्स, एंशियस कि कहीं गलत किसी संगति में ना चला जाए. बट एसेंशियली गलत संगति है क्या, वी टॉक अ लॉट. बट या कि कैसे वो बड़ा होगा. बट अभी इस टाइम पे आई थिंक द मेजर स्ट्रेस इज कि वो हेल्दी बड़ा हो, मेंटली एंड फिजिकली बोथ. सो वी थिंक दैट ये दो चीजें अगर हम ठीक से कर पाए एक कुछ सालों तक, उसकी मेंटल हेल्थ और फिजिकल हेल्थ का ध्यान रख पाए, आई थिंक बाकी सारी चीजें आई थिंक he'll take care of his
Very
own.
interesting. And the idea, Manish, कि ये decision लेना कि यार I'll move from Delhi to Himachal because there is some situation in Delhi and I want my child to be much more healthier. I think it's a big decision. मेरे को मनीष ये बता, when so generally you've sort of looked at father को एक तरह से, right? This is how fathers generally behave, right? And तुझे कहीं का लगता है कि am I becoming the right father that I want to be, or is that a struggle that you face often?
Yeah, it's a struggle, it's everyday struggle, Saransh, I guess. क्योंकि right fatherhood क्या है, I don't know. अभी जितना भी पढ़ लो, क्योंकि हर एक YouTube वीडियो आपको बता रहा है, कुछ अलग तरीके से करवा रहा है, बता रहा है कि ये करना चाहिए, ये नहीं करना चाहिए. Though we try to like uh, we try to like read a lot, information लेने की कोशिश करते हैं, but honestly I feel कि right fatherhood का definition अभी I don't know, वो है कि हमारे पास, but I think in our case the only thing that I feel कि ये चीज अगर मैं करता हूँ हर रोज तो ठीक हो जाएगा. I think just to spend some more time with the child, उसमें उसके साथ खुशी से खेल सकूं, बात कर सकूं अभी के टाइम पे, और जो भी उसकी नेसेसिटीज हैं, दूध बनाने से लेकर पानी साफ करने तक, उसमें मैं कंट्रीब्यूट कर पाऊं. आई थिंक अगर मैं सोचता हूँ कि ये सारी चीजें हो जाए, आई फील उतना भी कर पाऊं तो बहुत है अभी.
Interesting, interesting. And same question, Nitin, to you. Given your children have now grown also, did you struggle with the idea of कि अच्छा ideal father होगा कैसा, or do you think नहीं यार मतलब I carried on day to day जैसा हो रहा था?
Not really, since I was the eldest of
जी.
sibling, for me it came in as an extension of that. Um, and I got married at 31, so it wasn't too young an age also to get worried about such stuff. And I had this big advantage of having my parents along with me when my first child came in. And I think it was more contract between me and my parents कि बच्चा तभी पैदा करेंगे जब आप लोग आ जाओगे, because my wife was working.
Yeah.
So I think there was a big cushion we had in that sense. And my mom is a big disciplinarian. While I am a little more relaxed person, but it so happened that when she's in the house, during those times, she was also like in a way in charge, right? Because we are young parents, so she knows it all, and we don't know much, and therefore her decisions would softly prevail without us even knowing.
Interesting.
So it wasn't difficult, and it was a big relief that in my first daughter, I mean, my first child's initially growing up years, we were a joint family. It really helped. Then, of course, later I moved to Hyderabad from Mumbai, and then my brother, who was with me that time, along with parents, had also to move out because of the job reasons. We had to go elsewhere. But till that time, it was pretty comfortable. I think what that did to us was that my daughter grew up as an extremely disciplined child. And there was no screaming and howling at all, but there were rules set, and the children just fought. For example, I've seen so many parents these days who run behind their children to feed them.
Yep.
They show them Peppa Kids and whatnot, and they're all struggling to feed their children. Now my daughter is 16 years old, and I have never ever experienced a problem in making her eat, or it has never been a subject itself. Because my mother had a tendency that जो भी खिलाना है बच्चों को कटोरी में निकाल के रख दो, अपने साथ बिठाओ. So when she was very small, she was 5-6 months old also, she used to have a separate plate and food in that plate. And she'll sit along with all of us like another person, and we'll all eat, and she'll be fed with the hands. But then she kind of got groomed in a way that ये हमारा खाना है. So हमको कभी भी उसको बोलना नहीं पड़ा कि आपको खाना खाना है, ये अच्छा लगता है. So when I go to my sister's house, she quite often asks, बच्चों को क्या पसंद है, मैं क्या बनाऊं? My kids just can't answer that question because they don't know. जो बनता है, जैसा बनता है, वो खाते हैं. So I think that's been a major relief. And when I see and I travel in the planes, I see kids crying, howling, not sitting quiet. कभी मेरे बच्चों के साथ वो problem नहीं हुआ. They were very, very disciplined, but I think it happened because the first 5 months of my daughter's upbringing was such. And my son then, therefore, was just doing everything that my daughter was doing. दूसरे बच्चे को पालना नहीं पड़ा, पल गया. Of course, there was a lot of work around it for sure, because that time we were not a joint family. So my wife had to take a lot of pressure around it. But I think from a growing up standpoint, I have a reverse problem than compared to Manish. I have a problem that I want my children to get into nasty stuff, to have bad company. I want them to feel the bad side of life. I would say that in my graduation, I did everything which was possibly wrong to do. And that sobered me down to know the realities of life. I feel that I've created this protective cover around my children so much that they're not getting exposed to troubles. They're not getting exposed to problems in life. उनको चोर उचक्कों में और सही लोगों में अंतर नहीं समझ में आ रहा होगा, क्योंकि वो कभी खुद सब्जी खरीदने नहीं जाते हैं, क्योंकि वो इलेक्ट्रिकल की दुकान पर 1 mm का तार 4 mm के तार में डिफरेंशिएट नहीं कर सकते. वो केमिस्ट्री और फिजिक्स पढ़ सकते हैं, लेकिन उनको रियल लाइफ में क्या लाइफ फेस कर सकते हैं. तो मैं चाहता हूँ कि वो 3-4 जगह प्रॉब्लम्स में फंसे, पिट के आए, पीट के आए, से आने वाली जिंदगी they are far more empowered and far more structured in their thinking. I think to me personally, I thought me getting ranked in engineering college and going through all types of troubles during graduation was a personality builder. And I see that have beyond the childhood, even early adulthood, has helped me in my career later and my life later. I think that's something I'm worried about, that all these metro kids, we are not able to provide them with these kind of environments. They're all too protected.
Interesting, interesting. And I think थोड़ा सा मैं इस conversation को बढ़ाता हूँ आगे. So when your mother was taking care of your children, और उनके कुछ तरीके होंगे, उनके कुछ डिवाइस होंगे, राइट? एंड जैसे जैसे आप ग्रो करते यू फील लाइक ये शायद ठीक तरीके नहीं, या ये कोई और है, योर विजन एंड योर स्टेक होल्डर्स विजन और योर पार्टनर्स विजन आल्सो, राइट, कुड बी डिफरेंट. हाउ डू यू सॉर्ट ऑफ मैनेज विद दैट? एंड स्पेसिफिकली फादर्स जनरली क्या करते थे? छोड़ देते थे पहले जमाने में, तो कि छोड़ दिया है भाई, जैसे होगा वैसे होगा. गिवन देयर इज अ शिफ्ट इन चेंज ऑफ हाउ फादर्स आर आल्सो लुकिंग, हाउ डू यू नाउ एड्रेस दिस? क्योंकि इसके रोल मॉडल्स तो दिखे ही नहीं होंगे कभी.
So ऐसा नहीं है कि अगर mother is taking care then father is not a role model. I don't think that ever happened because family में ऐसा था कि uh, father was always the senior guy
Yep,
in a way,
yep, yep.
right? So quite often what happens is if you have a disciplinarian mother, father would not be prevailing, but ऐसा नहीं था. So my father was equally participating in my daughter's growing up, and so was I. और जब मैं घर आ जाता था ऑफिस से लौट के, उसके बाद वो मेरे ही पास रहती थी, वो किसी के पास नहीं जाती. So I think I was fully involved in that sense. And in fact, first 2-3 years I was working in an environment where I could come back home in time. But I think there was a complete contrast when my second child happened, because one, there was no grandparents around.
Right, right.
Second, I was also not around. तो मैंने अपने बेटे को ऐसे बड़ा होते देखा ही नहीं. मैंने उसको हमेशा ऐसे बड़ा होते देखा. Because I used to always land up at home when he would have slept off. And I would leave home before he would wake up. So, when he was 6-7 months old, we were traveling and he was looking at me as if, who's the stranger traveling with us? I never had the time because my work was such that I was way too occupied on a day-to-day basis at office. होली वाले दिन भी, दशहरे वाले दिन पूजा चल रही है तो भी मैं ऑफिस का काम कर रहा हूँ. My work was such that I was not able to spend any time with my younger one. So initial few years, I think till the time he turned around 3-4 years, there was very little connect between me and my son. And my wife was taking all the pressures. But I think after I shifted from that particular job role, then again it became, equally participative. And now the kids are pretty much grown up. अब तो उनको हमारी जरूरत नहीं है.
हाँ, सही बात, इस उम्र में जरूरत नहीं पड़. पर मनीष, टू यू, गिवन अभी यंग है, राइट, यू बोथ वुड हैव सम विजन्स कि ऐसे इसके साथ करेंगे, ये करेंगे, एंड कभी डिफरेंसेस आते होंगे, राइट? आई डोंट नो, अभी तक तो स्टेज पे पहुंचे नहीं होंगे, बट हाउ डू यू थिंक ऑफ दीज डिफरेंसेस दैट कम अप बिटवीन यू एंड दीपिका?
या डिफरेंसेस बहुत आते हैं इस चीज में भी आते हैं, largely because the knowledge that we have around things could be, it's not like the full knowledge. For example, बच्चा अगर रो रहा है, उसको पेट दर्द है या उसको दूध चाहिए या उसका डायपर चेंज करना है, क्या है हमें पता नहीं है. एंड देन वी वुड आर्ग्यू, नहीं यार ये करते हैं, उसका कहना होगा नहीं यार डिफरेंट चीज करते हैं. आई थिंक वो it's also a journey for us where we are learning कि हमें कैसे वो करना है. But essentially because we don't have the entire knowledge around parents, that's a reason why उसका कभी, मतलब दोनों का मकसद यही है कि जो बच्चा है वो ठीक से पले या फिर शांत हो जाए या फिर या खेले हमारे साथ. बट छोटी छोटी चीजें, फॉर एग्जांपल रिसेंटली अभी धैर्य, the name of my, उसके मुंह में छोटे से दाने निकल गए हैं. अब दीपिका बोल रही है कि नहीं हमें इस पे ना घी लगाना चाहिए या फिर इस पे वैसलीन लगानी चाहिए. आई एम लाइक इसको रहने दो जैसा है, ये सर्दी में हो सकता है, कोई बात नहीं. पड़ा
Manish,
है.
do a video call with your sasuma, do a video call with your mother, do what they tell you, just delegate.
तो यही छोटी छोटी चीजें जिसमें हमें पता नहीं क्या एक्सपेरिमेंट करना है बच्चे के साथ, देन वी वुड लाइक अच्छा टीचर से पूछ लेते हैं. हालांकि उतने बड़े नहीं है, बट जी वो या थिंग्स लाइक स्मॉल थिंग्स लाइक दीज रेगुलर लाइफ जिसमें हम डिफरेंसेस आते हैं, फिर हम एक दूसरे से बोलते हैं नहीं यार, फिर कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाए, उसका दाग ठीक ना हो, फिर आई वुड लाइक देखा मैंने बताया था, यू शुड नॉट हैव डन दैट. Yeah, I think it's part of parenting, but we enjoy it. कभी कभी तो मजा भी आता है, लेकिन कभी कभी things like really heated up उसके बाद फिर लगता नहीं यार, because we don't know what we are doing is right or not. But yeah, I think we are managing.
Interesting. And I want to come back. नितिन आपने एक चीज उठाई, and you'll have to आपको जॉब शिफ्ट करना which allowed you to be spending much more time. तो जनरली जब हम फादर्स को नितिन देखते हैं तो करियर की कॉन्वर्सेशन विद मदर्स बहुत होती है, राइट? ये वहां इफेक्ट होता है, एंड विच इज ट्रू आल्सो इन द लॉट ऑफ इट, राइट? वो सही बात है, पर फादर्स के साथ कभी भी ना ये कॉन्वर्सेशन नहीं हो पाती है करियर्स को लेकर. आई वांट टू एक्सप्लोर दैट कॉन्वर्सेशन आल्सो कि ऐसा मोमेंट्स आते थे क्या कभी की लगता था, एंड वाज इट समथिंग दैट यू सॉ आल्सो यार कि करियर्स एंड बीइंग अ बेटर पेरेंट आई हैव टू मेक अ चॉइस बिटवीन दोस टू समहाउ?
All the time. Because it was always a choice to be in that kind of a job role. Children are there with you, they're there for life, but jobs are not so. So that was always a chosen path and not so much a destined path or an enforced path on you. So I would say yes, we forced it on us to make such choices. And when it came to making some choices, I think I've been a little bullheaded at making sure that work takes precedence over issues. And only when my wife has told me ki thoda dekh lo, then only I will kind of make sure that I'm taking a leave from office or whatever. But having said that, I must tell you one thing. मेरे बच्चों को मेरी बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं होती है. Normal growing up, they are perfectly fine. If I teach them, they don't like it. If the mother teaches, they like it. Because I'm more the whacking types and the mother is more the training types, the grooming types. So the styles are very different. So we never do that together. One of us will deal with the situation and we never prevail over each other's decision. अगर एक ने कोई decision ले लिया, दूसरा interfere नहीं करेगा. So I don't put my hands in whatever my wife is doing. And if I enter a situation, my wife will back off and she will not interfere because we know कि अगर too many cooks will spoil the broth, तो चलता नहीं. Over a period, what has happened is my kids don't need me on a regular day, but when they fall sick, they need only Papa. And they will expect I should be around, I'm there. That time they don't need the mother. It's very contradictory because when people generally fall sick, they look for maternal care. It's quite contradictory to that, but I find it very strange. And my wife also says, "Bimar pada hai, to aap hi dekh lo." And they get more confidence. If same argument I'm giving and same argument my wife is giving, the children are more accepting to hear me in a not well situation.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think, whenever it has come to a call between work and family in general, not just children, I think I've always given precedence to work. That's also a guilt I carry, obviously, because, it has come at a lot of cost. There are a lot of guilts around it, not spending sufficient time with my father who's passed away, not giving sufficient time to my mother, not participating enough in festivals and weddings in the relatives' houses, not just parenting. In general, it has pulled me back from the social life. And children are, of course, the bigger sufferers in the game. And wife even all the more.
Yep. And Nitin, would you think कि ये जो work के ऊपर वो है, this is in some ways, was it a difficult choice, Nitin, when you were making it, or you like, yeah, मेरा role ही यही है and I have to do this role because it is a societal role जिसमें generally fathers को देखा जाता है, generally males को देखा जाता है.
So it's not so much that I wanted to be the earning champion. It is not from that perspective.
Interesting.
It is purely my bullheadedness to say कि मुझे इस space में आगे बढ़ना है. For example, I did a startup about 5-6 years back. I could have easily found another job. There was, in fact, one more opportunity after doing the startup when we were struggling in the startup to transition. But I didn't take it because it was more my own bullheadedness to say कि इसको मुझे करना है.
Right.
उतना aggression, I think, बाकी family members में नहीं है. So it was my own aggression which had to come at a cost. So I've always justified it to myself to say that if you have to do X, you'll have to do it at the cost of Y. And you cannot balance. So I do not believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life merger, as people say. And I think because at a very early stage, my children didn't see me as much, and now they can see me more. Their expectations from me is also at that much lower.
Interesting.
So they don't expect me to sit with them as much. In fact, उल्टा होता है. मैं weekends पे घर पे अगर बोलता भी हूँ, साथ में आके बैठो तो उनको समझ में नहीं आता करना क्या है, साथ तो बैठ गए. So and also I think probably it's the age. Now they've grown up too much, so nothing much we can do.
Yeah.
The other thing I've realized is कि बड़े बच्चों के साथ अगर आप सोच रहे हो आप दोस्त बन के रहोगे, वो नहीं होने वाला है. They are not going to give you that space. They are not going to open up as much to you. So that's another failure I would say, besides being bullheaded and not giving enough people.
एंड इंटरेस्टिंगली दिन आपने बड़ा अच्छा शब्द यूज किया, दोस्त. आई थिंक कभी कभार आई थिंक पेरेंट का अपना एक स्पेस है जो बच्चे को चाहिए. दोस्त नहीं, दोस्त है उसके पास. हर बार आप दोस्त बन के जाओ ना, मुश्किल भी हो जाता है. आई थिंक इट्स एन इंपॉर्टेंट डिस्टिंक्शन टू अंडरस्टैंड कि मैं एक पेरेंट हूँ, मुझे शायद बहुत सारे अलग अलग चीजें करने में काइंड बी जस्ट बी अ फ्रेंड. इंटरेस्टिंग. बट मनीष, आई वांट टू कम टू यू एंड सॉर्ट ऑफ आस्क यू कि यू सेड मनीष की बहुत सारा सोशल मीडिया है, राइट, जो इंफॉर्मेशन दे रहा होता है. एंड देयर आर न्यू पेरेंट्स जो इमेज कर रही, बहुत सारा ये अराउंड है, राइट. किस तरह से आ रहा है मनीष? मतलब इज इट एन इनेबलर, या लगता है दिस इज टू मच इंफॉर्मेशन? व्हाट इज हैपनिंग फॉर अ यंग फादर हुज कमिंग इन एंड लुकिंग एट, अच्छा यार कितना सारा चीज है जो मुझे समझना पड़ेगा.
Yeah, I think in the initial days, at least, first 2 months, it was enabler. क्योंकि उस टाइम हम ज्यादा क्यूरियस थे क्या हो रहा है चीज करने में. I think third and fourth month, I've stopped, like, not entirely stopped, but I stopped looking at those. Largely because अभी ऐसा फील यार, doesn't matter what we do, बच्चा उसी पेस से ग्रो करेगा, उस
Right.
वही से करेगा, और
Right.
हमें बेसिक चीजें नहीं है उसके साथ,
Right,
वो
right,
उतना.
right.
तो my wife is very particular about things, वो
Hmm.
हमेशा पढ़ती रहेगी,
Hmm.
देखती रहेगी कि क्या क्या गलत है. But for me, it gets real overwhelming कि कितना पता है अब इस चीज के बारे में, but छोटी छोटी चीजों के बारे में. And also feeling कि यार, I want to enjoy this life, these moments with my kid. I don't want to be stressed out thinking कि यार ये करूंगा तो ये हो जाएगा बच्चे के साथ, जो जो मैं पहले देख रहा था. I think one of the realization in third and fourth month अभी जाते हुए हो रही है, जैसे जैसे आप टाइम बिता रहे हैं, कि the journey should not be the parenting journey should not be stressful for both the parents. It should be enjoyable for the parents. That's the reason why we decided last month कि यार अब ठीक है, बच्चे को हमने प्रोटेक्टिव रख दिया, 3 महीने हो गए हैं, लेट्स टेक हिम आउट, थोड़ा सा थोड़ा ड्राइव करके जाते हैं, 15 मिनट लेते हैं, बाहर चाय पी के आते हैं, बाहर मौसम अच्छा है, बाहर जाते हैं, खुद भी थोड़ा सा एंजॉय करते हैं, सो दैट वी फील यार अब ये दिस इज अ फैमिली एंड we can also enjoy with the kids. It's not stressful every time.
Interesting learning. And given 4 महीने में ही आने लगा, Manish is good. I want to come to Nitin and ask, Nitin, आपके लिए major whatever learning moments अगर कुछ रहे हैं तो what were those?
Well, I would say I'm still learning, so I think the journey so far of toddlers to, or rather infants to, childhood was all right. I think I've never felt as disempowered as I feel today when my children are in their adolescence or in the early youth age, because this is the time when I'm not able to connect with them. Because earlier I thought they were more transparent with me. And I find it very tough uh, to make my daughter sit and talk to me heart to heart. I'm one of those fathers who never hides his emotions at home. अगर ऑफिस में भी कुछ गलत हो रहा है या कुछ भी है लाइफ में, financials हो, personal हो, कुछ भी हो, I share with the kids because that's what my father did. So let me put it like this. I have ended up becoming a reflection of my father.
Right.
There were areas where he was very good in my assessment, and therefore I kind of unknowingly built my character around it.
Yep.
And there were areas where I thought he needs more aggression. He needs to be more, he's too nice. I didn't want to be a nice guy. So I became way too aggressive on a few things. And I had this feeling that maybe it will reflect on my children also, but I think the early signals are not so. They are definitely not getting influenced by my personalities, how I see them. They have their own views, and I've always respected their views. Even the most complicated of family conversations around relatives, relationships, finances, complicated stuff also. I have ensured that the children participate. Because my father used to say something. He used to say, 8 से 80 साल का आदमी मेंटली इक्वली मेच्योर होता है. आपके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है आप उसको कितना मेच्योरिटी से देखना चाहते हैं. So after both my children, once they crossed 8 years of age, we have treated them like adults in all conversations. They know exactly how many bank accounts I have, how much cash is lying, where are my investments, what are my anxieties about this. There is a startup I invested in as an angel investor which failed. They know exact details of all of that.
Very interesting.
So I think I've kind of kept that transparency, or maybe it's more an Agarwal family trait as well, that you keep discussing finance at home all the time, so that there is an incipient training going on for the future growth. But you know, I think it more comes from my father's both strengths, the way I saw it, and the areas where I had to rebel against him. That I've tried to do it, and there's a reflection of that with the children. But the biggest challenge has been, how do you speak to a 16-year-old and make her believe that you're ready to be with her? So I told her that, beta, even if you fail, you're still my daughter. I don't care. Right? So she's doing some preparation for some comparative exams. I told her, होगा तो ठीक है, नहीं होगा तो भी चलेगा. But how do you have a conversation where you are saying your thing, but she's also speaking her thing? And she's able to open up has been a very big challenge, because she does open up once in a while with her mother. But that's the challenge I've faced, that they don't open up. And you were also mentioning the information part. I thought बच्चे थे तो information का इतना problem नहीं था. अभी there's a major chaos, because this whole blurring of lines between information and knowledge is a constant struggle. So they know it all, they have access to all it, but there's no experiential knowledge. So the ability to differentiate. So she's 16 years old. I recently got her bank accounts open, and I'll make sure that she does her independent banking. It's basically to groom her. गलती करेंगे ठीक है चलेगा कोई बात. But I want her to face the world. I want her to become strong. I think that's been the bigger challenge.
Interesting. And I think मनीष खासकर and both मनीष, आप लोग ने जर्नी ली है इतनी लंबी काफी. मनीष तूने छोटी ली है, नितिन आपने काफी लंबी जर्नी ली है as a father. There are moments when you would have felt, both of you would have felt tired, या मेरे को अब थोड़ा सा चाहिए. How do you take care of yourself within that situation, right? What do you do to ensure कि you are not being competitive or not sort of burdening the child with your own aspirations or your own dreams that you have. तो मनीष पहले तेरे से करते, क्योंकि अभी तो छोटा है, इनसे बहुत काम होता है. मुझे मालूम है, तू कुछ दिन पहले मुझे बता रहा था कि सोया नहीं है 10 दिन से, राइट? हाउ डू यू टेक केयर ऑफ योरसेल्फ?
Yeah, challenges तो आते हैं, but thankfully my wife is very she takes lots of stress. मेरा भी आधा जो stress है वो ले लेती है जब बच्चे का उसमें आता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मैं सोया नहीं हूँ, आई वुड जस्ट रात को 3 बजे बोलूंगा, यार मैं आज नहीं कर सकता, मैं सो सकता हूँ थोड़ी देर. सो चाहे वो सोई भी नहीं होगी, शी वुड गेट अप एंड जो भी काम है वो करने का. एक पार्टनर का तो काफी बड़ा रोल है, जस्ट टू मेक श्योर कि मैं जो हूँ मैं अपना टाइम दे रहा हूँ. बट ऑल्सो कुछ चीजें अपने लाइफस्टाइल में भी चेंज करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं इस पूरे दौरान में. जैसे कितने टाइम में काम करना है मुझे, मतलब कब साइन ऑफ करना है, कौन सी चीजें लेस इंपॉर्टेंट टास्क और नो कब बोलना है, सो दैट आई कुड हैव टाइम फॉर माई सेल्फ कुछ देर के लिए. कभी कभी जैसे आज ही शाम को मैं इवनिंग ड्राइव पे चला गया कि सब्जी लेने जाता हूँ मैं, जस्ट टू मेक श्योर कि मैं अपने लिए समय निकाल रहा हूँ. आई थिंक हर दिन का वो है कि छोटे छोटे 5-5 मिनट की जो टाइम ऑफ्स है, समय अपने लिए निकालना और अक्सर रहना, एंड देन so the partners support, it all helps.
Interesting. And I think generally parenting journey में ना मदर्स के साथ होता है कि पार्टनर का बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है, पर इंटरेस्टिंगली फादर्स के लिए भी बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है पार्टनर का एक रोल. आई थिंक इट्स ऑलवेज अ टू वे साइकिल.
ट्रू. आई थिंक आजकल की पेरेंटिंग में, आई डोंट नो, मतलब अभी तो शुरू हुई है, बट मेरे कई सारे फ्रेंड्स जो न्यू पेरेंट्स हैं, आई हैव सीन दिस कॉमन ट्रेंड जिसमें बहुत सारी शेयर्ड रिस्पांसिबिलिटीज हैं. हर चीज की शेयर्ड रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है. कुछ चीजें तो हैं वो मदर ही कर सकती है, राइट? ब्रेस्ट फीड करना वो सब, वो उसमें हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते। और somehow kid like the baby feels more strongly bonded with the mother, इसलिए कभी वो ज्यादा रो रहा है मदर को ही वो इन्वॉल्व करना पड़ता। बट देन आई हैव सीन पेरेंट्स अभी जो न्यू पेरेंट्स हैं, जिसमें वो हर मतलब रात को जागने से लेके अपना काम करने से लेके जॉब भी, उसके बाद बाहर का काम भी, मदर के साथ भी समय बिताना। I think parenting is sort of we are exploring new ways of parenting these days, जिसमें हम ये ना बोलें कि यार मेरा तो बाहर का ही काम है, I'll do the job, but also think of कि यार जॉब तो कर रहे हैं वो चलती रहेगी, but can I spend more time and share more with the partner? Yeah.
Nitin, how do you take care of yourself given आपकी जर्नी काफी लंबी रही है?
Well, I honestly do not have an answer for this. I'll be very honest, because
जी.
I would say this is where a little bit of a gender divide comes in, because men have a choice.
Yeah.
They can decide to be participative or be non-participative. And what typically men decide, that reflects on how a woman would have a life.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's not significant that I get time for myself, but what is important is that my wife has not had time, because whenever I have time, the bias is to spend time with the kids and not as much with the wife.
Interesting.
There is often a dichotomy that you can either spend time with the wife or you can spend time with the kids. Because even when three of them are sitting together with me, the transactions, so to speak, from a behavioral science standpoint, is not common. Right? So if you're having a conversation with the wife, the kids get ignored, or it would be contextually different. Or if I'm explaining finances to wife, I actually explain it to my children. And my wife happens to be in the room and she's listening. So if I have to talk to her, I talk to her through my children. So, so that they are involved, they get groomed. So there's so much of focus for children's grooming that, the partnerships get, to me personally, I think it's taken a backseat. And therefore, this question is more relevant for the woman in the house. That is she getting space for herself? Because, willy-nilly, we go out of the house. I travel a lot. So one would find solace, one would find time. In office, you can take time off. You can sit alone in your cabin for 20 minutes and think, so to speak. But I would say this is a little more gender specific question where men have an unfair advantage over women.
True. And I think शायद नई जनरेशन जो हो रहा है नितिन, वहाँ कुछ differences हो रहे होंगे given the imbalance that is coming in. And people are able to sort of question and see that clearly. I think which is an important bit to call it out. Ki there is a bias there clearly.
Well, that's why I was
against
mentioning earlier in the conversation. Are the men equally participating in household activities?
True.
Quite often we say men are charitable to say, मैं भी घर में help करता हूँ. You would have seen, I help my wife doing cooking. First of all, whose job was this in the first place? Who said it was the wife's job to do the cooking and the cleaning and the taking care of the house? Right? Or so I think there is a bit of stereotypes to be broken there.
बिल्कुल.
लोग बहुत शान से बोलते हैं, I share my wife's responsibilities. मुझे थोड़ा awkward लगता है, क्योंकि आप किचन में साथ में खड़े होकर खाना बना लो, आप भी साथ में सफाई करा लो, साथ में सारे काम कर लो, तो ज्यादा मजा आएगा और बच्चों को भी अच्छा इंस्पिरेशन मिलेगा.
Very interesting. And then we've opened up for questions. Manish, तो हमारे पास कुछ private chat में मेरे पास कुछ सवाल आ रहे हैं. I will actually sort of ask one of the questions. This might be coming from a guilt-ridden father. He's saying guilt को कैसे handle करते हैं? I think this is for you. क्या करें उस guilt का?
Well, I think we have to reconcile with the fact that कभी मुकम्मल जहां नहीं मिलता, कभी ज़मीं तो आसमान नहीं मिलता. So I think we just have to live with it. And if you're the people against whom you have the guilt, if they are reconciled with it, and they are not, constantly bickering about it. For example, my partner never bickers with me about the fact that I don't spend as much time with the family. My mother has never said that, although I can see it in her face. It is so visible on her face. फोन नहीं करता है, साथ में नहीं बैठता है. But if they don't if they're not making noise around it, if they're not making it difficult for you, you just reconcile with it to say that you have to make a choice. Either you do this or you do that. Doing a startup was not somebody recommended to me. It was a call to be taken, which meant it will come with a lot of financial uncertainties, personal life challenges. And I'm not even expecting similar level of commitment from my co-founders, quite honestly. One of the ways to, kind of get rid of your guilt is also to say that मैं नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ तो क्या, at least मेरे junior co-founders को समय मिलना चाहिए. They should be able to do holidays. They should be able to go check out from office in time. How do I enable that? I think guilt अलग-अलग zones में निकलती है, but one of the zones that I'm very strict about not releasing the guilt is to buy gifts for my children. Quite often people release their guilt by saying कि हमारे लिए तोहफा ले आया, वो तोहफा ले आया. I think वो मैं नहीं करता हूँ, but I try to reconcile, and I think it's like a social contract between me and my children that they are also reconciled to it. कि अगर ऐसा होगा तो पापा will give precedence to work over them. Once that social contract is established and it is in play, guilt becomes like a reconciliation.
Yeah.
Not as much.
Interesting. And again, questions around ecosystem क्या role play करे नितिन मनीष, right? So there are organizations जहाँ work है, there are certain things that are already happening, right? Now, given parenting journeys are being undertaken, there is some role that the ecosystem could play. So if Manish, if you had to say 2 or 3 things that the ecosystem, the organization that you work with or across, right? What would 2 to 3 things be? And similar, Nitin, question for you, Manish.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I am lucky in terms of is the time off. So कितना time off आपको मिलेगा जब baby होगा. I think paternity leave एक जो अगर हम change कर पाए पूरा ecosystem में, luckily मेरी organizations में वो काफी flexible है. You can go up to 3 months, उसके बाद फिर ले सकते हैं. Same as जो भी maternity leave होता है वैसा. I think वो अगर कर पाए, क्योंकि आई फील वो इतना ज्यादा जरूरी था समय हम के लिए, बच्चे के लिए भी. आई नीडेड इट. पहले लगता था कि नहीं, जरूरत नहीं है, 1 महीना काफी है, लेकिन जब वो उस फेज में गए, आई थिंक पैटर्निटी लीव इफ वी कैन हैव मोर ऑफ दैट, एटलीस्ट शुरुआत के मंथ्स में 3-4 मंथ्स, जब तक बच्चा थोड़ा सा संभल पाए, गर्दन सीधी कर पाए, तब तक हो पाए तो. But I think secondly, around general check-ins from the team members. कभी भी बीच में check in करना कि कैसे हो, personal message में. Sometimes it feels कि यार इससे क्या होगा, but you feel like connected कि अच्छा यार हम एक journey में हैं, and there is someone who is also thinking about it. ये कोई मतलब बड़ा कुछ होता डिफरेंस नहीं है, लेकिन एटलीस्ट फील कि someone is there in the company, in the ecosystem, जो कि who's also thinking about you while you are in that journey. बस थोड़ा सा अच्छा लगता है कुछ समय के लिए, but हाँ, it works.
Yeah, interesting. Nitin?
Well, I would give you 2-3 instances. So when I was in the stage that Manish is in today, I had a few peer groups who were, a couple of people who are ahead of me in age or in their life stage in terms of the children, some peers, in fact, the executive assistant of my boss. I think one thing I have always maintained is that I'm very transparent in my office. So if I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm sad, I'm sad. If there's something bothering me, I will talk about it. And willy-nilly, I've seen that you attract more help and support if you're less secretive and less brooding, because what you face in life is something that everybody would be either facing or could have expected to face. What tips and tricks मिलते हैं? Just to give one example, मेरा एक दोस्त है प्रवीण लड्डा. मनीष बता रहे हैं उनका बेटा रात को रोता होगा शायद, तो वो सो नहीं पाते हैं. मेरे को ऐसी प्रॉब्लम कभी नहीं आई मेरी बेबी को, बिकॉज लड्डा जी ने मुझे ट्रेन कर दिया था कि हाउ टू मेक श्योर दैट यू मैनेज द स्लीप साइकिल ऑफ योर चाइल्ड. क्योंकि वो बहुत नेचुरल है. व्हेन द चाइल्ड वाज नॉट बॉर्न, He was active when the mama was resting, and he was happy when the mama was working, and that time he was sleeping. So it will reverse when he's born, and all this was anticipated, and we could plan ourselves around it. So we never had this neend nahi aa rahi hai wala problem between me and my wife. We could manage it very comfortably because we got those tips and tricks from people who were ahead of us, and they told us. For example, कितना भी रोए कंधे पे लेके रात को दुलारी दे दे के नहीं सुलाना है. आदत पड़ गई तो 8 महीने तक करना पड़ेगा, फिर आपकी कमर में दर्द शुरू हो जाएगा. सो दो कितना भी रोए, और रोने से घबराना नहीं है, बिकॉज इवन 4 महीने का बच्चा भी ड्रामा करना जानता है. सो हाउ टू डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन वो कब ड्रामा कर रहा है, किस तरह का फेस देख करके आपको लगेगा वो ड्रामा है, कब वो जेन्युइन है. टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स अगेन, पेट मैनेज करना, उनका गैस्ट्रो स्टफ मैनेज करना, be it coming from parents, from neighbors, or from friends. I think we've been pretty open, and we kept up learned from whatever we got, and it really helped. So I would say ecosystem बहुत important है, life easier बनाता है, except that we have to be open to accepting feedback and adopting it.
Interesting. And then maybe organizations could potentially come into play that role also, right? वो ecosystem बना पाना, right? कोई एक नया father बन रहा है, नहीं मतलब बन, how do you sort of ensure कि वो एक ecosystem बन पा रहा है, उनके लिए एक support network बन पा रहा है? I think it's an important takeaway for organizations which are looking to now sort of और ये हो, right? People parents बनेंगे, उनकी एक journey होगी, and therefore how do you the organization support them?
But how do we define कि नया father versus old father versus not so old father? Right? We all choose to work 8 hours or 18 hours to our own, to our own wish. And during tight times, we prioritize work, or we, Sundays कुछ हो गया है, month ends हैं, आप काम कर रहे हो या नहीं कर रहे हो, या बच्चे के साथ 2 घंटा बिताना ही है. It's a personal choice. So I think उसमें I would not blame the employers. You take a role where it works. You do not take a role where it does not work. Right? I cannot expect that in a supercharged atmosphere, in a startup-ish environment, some of the high flyers that I would have perhaps in my team on the tech side, on the business side, would even be cultivating such thinking. But, things like having a crash in the office. I'll give you another example. We started a policy that in a team of ours, we will only hire mothers who are restarting their careers. Okay. So whenever we have tried, and this is not just this organization, but a lot of other organizations, whenever we have tried any focused approach, people have misused it more than people have used it. So I would say it is not as much the organizations which are employers who can cast, a big impact on this. It's personally your choice. If you want to spend more time with your family, then take up roles which allows you work from home, or, allows you this flexibility. If you're more aggressive on that side, maybe you don't do that.
Yeah.
But each organization has to fit a mold. I would strongly not like to believe that.
True, and each organization शायद fit नहीं करे mold, but I think there are certain things जो शायद standard रहे across. Maybe that sort of comes in. और वो कितना standard रहेगा, कितना नहीं, that's a big question that we still have to sort of grapple with. But I think we do clearly see there are shifts that are happening. Parenting leave का आना and all of those things. Now, will it become standard? Will it not become standard? All of those questions are still open and to be discovered by.
How many people really use it and how many people misuse it?
Yep.
My track record as CEO of a company which I ran earlier, and let me say last 15 years I've been in the CXO roles. I can tell you in my perspective, more people have misused those facilities than have used. And this is on both genders, not one. And therefore, there have been instances, for example, in my office, there was a girl who went on maternity leave, and she was there for 9 months and her salary was paid. And I was very sure she's not going to rejoin. She's going to keep extending it and she's just going to get free salary. So after you have done that a few times over, you know that you're doing injustice to those people who are working hard. So it's not a question that you're doing justice or providing a facility. You are actually being punitive on those people who are, working harder, or who have made a choice of not to have children, or for that matter, defer, or for that matter, be more aggressive at work and make sure that you have support systems at home to take care of the children. So I think I would not think that it is the organization's responsibility at all. We do need to have a parity and a level playing field. That definitely is granted.
Yeah. And I think the big question is, how do we sort of explore this parity, and how do we sort of understand that the burden of parenting is not on one gender or the other gender, and how do you sort of make it much more equal
So
for
I'll tell
both?
you my version of that is very simply. For example, we don't have a leave policy in the company.
Ji.
We don't have a office coming in, going out policy in the company. So if you have to go for a parent teachers meeting, you can come at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not a half day mark.
True.
You just need to inform your teams.
Yeah.
If your child is not well, you're always available to spend more time.
Yeah. And true. I think this is where a lot of the things that we take for granted come into actually support parenting journeys that parents take. Thank you for sharing that, Nitin. We could run this over for 2 hours also. It's an interesting conversation, but we are hitting the time. Before we close, just to let everyone know that we are running a crowdfunding campaign also. So if you want to donate, feel free to support us. The donation link is in the YouTube channel. You can donate to us. The idea is sort of encourage these parenting conversations, help everyone understand किस तरह से parenting जर्नी सही है, किस तरह से एक सपोर्ट इकोसिस्टम बन सकता है, ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का क्या रोल रहेगा, इंडिविजुअल्स का क्या रोल रहेगा, फैमिलीज का, सोसाइटी का, and the idea sort of continue to evolve this conversation around parenting, fathers, mothers. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you Manish. Thank you Nitin for joining, taking out time,
Pleasure.
sharing so openly about your experiences. Deeply appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.